What a matchbook. Stack of napkins.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're sharing this
All right, we'll do roll call. Mary Ann,
here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here,
Ms. McDonald. Here. Mr. Feldman,
I'm here.
Mr. Leibel,
Here.
Mr. Belanti,
Here.
and I am here. All in favor to accept roll, right? Motion to accept.
So
roll.
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Jump in at any time. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that carries.
Oh, loudly, so
Oh,
everyone can hear.
You gotta stand up.
Gotta stand up.
Oh,
This is
here
a
we
real
go.
thing.
Yeah.
I, Hunter Trilov, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York. That I will faithfully discharge the duties of student ex officio board member of the Sweet Home Board of Education according to the best of my ability.
Where'd he go? That's all right. Next, we have the approval of the agenda and the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Communications, we have one from Harris Beach.
We have the legislative priorities survey from the legislative committee. It's in the informational items in our packet. As a board, I don't know if we want to collect everyone's individual responses and like collate them, but we need to send that back to ECASB probably by next week so that they can put together their priority survey.
Okay,
So for next week, can we
Yeah.
discuss it or?
Yeah, Scott, how do you think is?
We've certainly done it in the past, but it's lengthy. There's a lot
Yeah,
this
we've had
year.
a lot this year.
There's a lot. Yeah, and they're sunsetting quite a few.
No, not the.
Not the
proposal.
resolutions.
This is for the legislative committee.
My mistake. I was thinking of the NISBA resolution. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
it's still lengthy, though.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just whether our board supports certain
Is
initiatives.
this with Amherst?
No, this is also separate from that. This is with E ECASB, so that they can establish their advocacy agenda for the year.
It's a 4-page document, so shouldn't be long, but we can get those
Just like
together.
if you agree with this statement or not, and then if you send them all to me, I can just tab them up.
Any other communications? Right, unfinished business, we have none, brings us to the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Battaglia. We have a couple presentations tonight for the board. First, we would like to introduce our friends from Wendell and Associates, John Havrilla, Danielle Wink, and Adam Kaufman. They have completed our zero emission vehicle transition plan report and are here to present that to the Board of Ed tonight. So our friends from Wendell, you are on. And just let me know when you want me to click forward.
Thank you.
I'm usually very bad at it, so just
right.
don't feel free to just throw stuff at me if you
Right.
need to.
Well, thanks for
Thank you.
having us. Like Mike said, I'm Danielle Wink. I'm a project manager at Wendell. This is Adam Kaufman. He's an energy engineer, and John Havrilla. He is the director of alternative fuels. So we've been working with Sweet Home and NYSERDA on this transition plan for maybe 6 months at this point. So we're excited to show you what we put together. So this is the overview agenda. We'll go through the goals of the plan, the principles, we'll get into some analysis and talk about an overall, high level overall overview of the transition to zero emissions. And then we'll get into questions and a discussion period.
Yeah, so our goal, zero emission vehicle transition plan goals. I'm gonna move a little bit closer. Yeah, so we're trying to transition by 2035. That's one of the state mandates. Zero emission vehicles by that date. Evaluate. Upgrades. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of upgrades that we need to do, or Sweet Home needs to do in order to make you guys able to use, operate zero emissions vehicles and have the infrastructure capable to charge and operate them properly. Provide information to the district in order to make informed decisions. Yep. So there's a lot of intricacies that go into it. In the next slides, we're going to get into key points and constraints. And again, one of the core reasons that we're doing this is we're driving towards a more sustainable future, reduction of energy loads, and assist in conversion to carbon-free fuel. So by going away from diesel fuel, we're able to operate on electric, and that has zero carbon emissions associated. Sorry, move to that next one. Guiding principles. So these are principles that we use as, it helps us move in the right direction overall for these transitions. Every school is different, but these are principles that are pretty consistent throughout to help make sure that we can have a seamless transition. So one of them is no impact on student experience. Students should not know that we're changing buses. It should be seamless for them. They picked up at the same time, they dropped off at the same time. Constraints on operations. So transportation operations is not an easy or simple task to perform as it is right now. We want to make sure that we enable them to be successful. And so that's guiding principles that help us to get to a good transition. Constraints. So obviously electric vehicles do not have the same range that diesel fuel vehicles have. Charging durations, you need to recharge the battery in between AM and PM routes. It's a lot of analysis. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure that we specify the right bus and the right charger. They get picked up and dropped off properly without failing on the road. Utility demand. So we're going to need additional power from the utility. These are constraints. So we work with the utility very closely to make sure that they can provide the power necessary to charge the buses. Demand on facilities and operations. So again, we understand the staff is stressed, has to do their job. We don't want to add to it. So we want to make sure we minimize the additional tasks that we ask of the people that operate these buses, and maintenance knowledge. So there is some high voltage equipment. These are chargers, these are buses, electric drivetrains. There is a knowledge gap that needs to be addressed when using this transition. So, we would bring in the right skilled labor to train and make sure that your existing maintenance staff is brought up to speed. And I think over time, you'll be able to take that fully in-house. Thank you.
So this is the scope of work that we worked on. We worked on all these tasks. We'll get into some of the analysis and we'll talk about the phases later on in this presentation.
Perfect. Yeah. So first, again, I spoke a little bit about it, but we have to look at the routes. How long are they? What are the mileage? What's the distance? What's the duration? What times do they arrive? What times do they depart? And we look at it in a worst case situation. I'm an engineer, so we designed to design standards. The worst, most stressed period is going to be those coldest days. So on the coldest day, we want to make sure that the bus doesn't, fail. So we stress the models to make sure that they can address those worst case conditions. So we went through and we use a lot of real-time data. So with these buses, they'll put out manufacturer data. Hey, we can do this mileage, this energy usage. We took real-time data in addition to that to enhance those kind of core, technical specifications of the buses. So again, just to highlight that we do a lot of modeling, we do a lot of energy analysis to make sure that what we specify, they can complete it. And we err on the side of caution to make sure that, we'd rather them have 30 kilowatts extra than not be able to complete a route. The max rate that we got was 300 kilowatt hours. It's on the larger end of a current school bus that is available today. And then there's what we actually specify, some key takeaways. There's different manufacturers and models, but we found that Sweet Home can utilize a Thomas Built Juliet's 220 kilowatt hours roughly for 62 of their 67 buses. Right now, 67 buses, 56 I think are active right now, and that's what we calculated in our model as well. So we would transition for all 67 with 62 220 kilowatt hour buses. And like I said, there's a couple routes that are longer. Right now, one of the largest models that's on the market that's available is an IC bus at 321 kilowatt hours. So again, there are some routes that are more stressed and we need to specify larger batteries, bigger buses. For the charger sizes, different sizes right now, we stuck with 2. So we want to keep it as consistent as possible. We don't want to put 20 different charger sizes. So you guys need to make sure you're putting the right bus in the right spot. It's 60 kW and 7 120 kW for routes that are more stressed that need to have a faster charge than 60 kW. You're all good. The peak was 13 kW. We spoke with the utility and they were able to provide that additional service, which is great.
Yeah, so when transitioning to zero emissions, the district will need more power. So we worked with National Grid. Essentially, an additional service would be required and also an additional transformer. And these costs can be covered, up to 90% of the cost can be covered by a Make Ready program through the utility, and that's for utility side upgrades.
So basically what we did is we looked at how we would phase this in from now until 2035 when the whole fleet has to be transitioned over. We started with the school district's anticipated bus procurement schedule, which is what you see up top. And we use that as the basis. Now, one thing I want to stress is that this is a plan and it's flexible. We are anticipating buses being procured along the schedule, but if they change, it's not critical. You still have the flexibility to buy buses based upon financing issues, scheduling, various things. But this was how the plan was laid out. Next slide. So the temporary charging phase. One of the things that happened once we were in the program is Sweet Home was able to take advantage of what we call the TVIP program, Truck Voucher Incentive Program. It's a program administered by NYSERDA that allows you to trade in an old diesel bus for a new electric bus. And Sweet Home was able to take advantage of that and get 3 new electric buses that will be delivered sometime towards the fall of next year. We had to come up with how we would charge those because the balance of what we are trying to do would not be ready. So you've got an interim period here where you're going to have 3 buses arrive that we need to deal with. That's what the temporary charging phase is. And we're looking at installing 3 chargers near the garage that have unique capabilities that will allow us to do that on the existing service to Sweet Home schools. That phase is about $960,000 is what we estimated at for the charging equipment, not the buses. Then we go phase one, which I have details on how these phases roll out. Phase one is a major phase. That's the new feed from grid, new power feed to the back of the property where we're putting in new switchgear, fire protection system upgrades because we need fire protection upgrades for battery electric buses. So that is the bulk of the upgrades. And then it also provides a certain number of buses. Phase two would be another string of buses. Phase three, the same thing. And phase four is the final phase with additional buses. Total all phase, we're looking at about $11 million of construction cost for the upgrades. That includes the chargers and all the wiring equipment and construction costs. Next slide. So what you're seeing here is this is the front of the property. Here's where a new transformer would be placed by National Grid. We would bring power back to an equipment area back here. And then we would provide chargers along the back here in this first phase. And we would also provide a new fire pump to provide enhanced fire protection for the maintenance facility to work on battery electric buses. Phase two, we would then run additional chargers down this side to pick up more buses as you expand. Next slide. The next phase is we would add additional block of buses here. And in the final phase, another block of buses up here. So there is some flexibility as to how we accommodate these. I believe you have a significant amount in the first phase. Next slide.
So the funding opportunities include the utility Make Ready program I mentioned before. So the utility will cover 90% of utility side upgrades. And because Sweet Home has already been accepted or approved for TVIP, that means that you're already pre-qualified essentially for the Make Ready program. There's also the EPA Clean School Bus Grant Program, which provides funding for replacement of existing buses. And I know Don's been working with a group as a group application for that. So that's already in the works. And also NYSERDA is working on additional programs to help with more infrastructure for school side infrastructure upgrades. So we should be getting more information on that end of this year, early next year.
The other thing I would add is in conversations with National Grid, they're in conversations with the Public Service Commission to see if they can stretch their Make Ready program from just dealing with the utility side infrastructure to assist with some of the client side infrastructure.
Mhm.
That's not available yet, but that's also in the works. So there's several different paths where money's starting to be looked at to help with that big nut for implementation.
So just if I could, for the good of the board, just so that, excuse me, we kind of understand where we are in the process with everything. As Danielle and team mentioned, we are part of the truck voucher incentive program. And that's how, if our budget were to pass in May, that's how we would procure the next or the first 3 electric buses. Being part of that truck voucher incentive program allows us to be part of the utility, the Make Ready program, which can help us with some infrastructure work. To what level, I can't speak to that. We have that second bullet down, the EPA Clean School Bus Grant Program. We have applied twice. The first time we went out on our own and we were waitlisted. The second time we've teamed with a group with an outfit called Highland Bus Fleets that have put together an application of districts across the country. We are part of their program. We have requested funding for electric buses in the neighborhood of $1.8 million worth of buses in the second round of funding. And we hope to find out kind of where we stand in January. The EPA has some pretty strict criteria on their funding. There are levels of funding that is available to a district. We are a district that is not a high need district, which is probably why we got waitlisted the first time around. We are hopeful that by kind of working on this as a group across the country, that the EPA has kind of eased some of the restrictions on funding for districts, that will be more successful and see some money come that way. The EPA has also just opened up a third round of funding for the bus program that will work with Highland on doing a third application for. So to the point here, we have really turned over kind of every opportunity to us in terms of funding. For us right now, I feel pretty comfortable where we are in terms of being able to secure funding that would get us to purchase electric buses pretty close to what we would normally pay for a diesel bus. The issue right now, and John and I were talking about it before the meeting, is the infrastructure piece, specifically the charging mechanisms. While National Grid and the EPA have some help, I don't know what that help looks like, and we're going to have to kind of explore that further. What I will also say is the timeline, 2027 to 2035, also times out well with a potential next capital improvement project for the district. So if there are a significant number of items that need to be done for us to get ready for the electric school bus transition, the capital improvement project could certainly be an area that we would explore. Because as you see, the number is a significant number, but we're working on trying to find ways to decrease those costs to the district and to take advantage of as much grant opportunity as we can. Sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go back one. Okay, so operation and maintenance. There's impacts on the workforce. There's impacts on safety, training, bus maintenance, facilities maintenance, and operations. Battery electric buses are less complex than their diesel counterparts. They don't have transmissions. They don't have engines. They have motors primarily in the wheels. So the drivetrain is a lot easier to maintain, but they have battery systems, which are high voltage DC systems. So there's training on how, we need to train the mechanics as to how to operate on these or work on these buses. We also need to have training for the drivers as to how to drive them. It's been proven that driver training is critical to get the most efficiency out of a battery electric bus. How you drive a bus really matters. So training is a key issue. Safety, you're going to need to have lockout tagout training. You're going to need to have high voltage training for your staff. And those are all readily available programs that you can have. Bus maintenance, you need bus maintenance training. Facilities, we don't see much need in your particular facility. A lot of facilities we deal with are older. We need to replace lifts and things of that nature because of the weight of the buses. You've got a beautiful facility. It's pretty state of the art. We don't see a lot there other than the fire protection system. And again, we'll need to provide training on that system. Operations, we should discuss at some point. Operation procedures. So for example, if a battery electric bus is involved in an accident, heaven forbid, but it does. You don't want to bring it back and put it in the garage. You want to park it outside until somebody can take a look at it and make sure that the battery is safe, so that the battery isn't damaged and doesn't cause a fire. So there's certain operational things you need to look at when you're dealing with this type of bus. Next slide. So we looked at what are the cost savings, and bus maintenance savings is fairly significant, about $1.6 million over 10 years. Fuel savings is not insignificant either. Battery replacement. This is an issue that the entire industry is dealing with. We put numbers in here, but what Thomas Built is now telling us is they would guarantee the battery for the life of the bus. So it used to be 6 years. Battery technology has improved. So you can get an extended warranty on the battery. So that negative number may just go away, but we put some numbers in there just to be conservative. EV charger maintenance, that's not an insignificant number. You can do it several ways. These are high voltage chargers, high voltage DC. You can have a maintenance contract with the charger manufacturer, which is what I would suggest for at least the first year or two, and then have your people trained and shadow them, and then eventually bring that in-house. And then fuel savings is also there. So there is savings going to battery electric buses. It's not significant, but it's not insignificant either. Next slide.
Yeah, and so here's a little energy analysis and the cost comparison between diesel and electric vehicles. Essentially on the left is buses using diesel fuel with their average miles per gallon and overall energy associated with that usage, with burning that diesel fuel. On the right side is switching to electric buses. So you can see significant energy reduction, which is expected, and associated carbon emissions. And what's even more beautiful is pretty decent, I wouldn't call them significant, cost savings from switching from diesel fuel to electricity. So that's what this slide highlights.
One other thing I would point out here is the 2.83 kilowatt hours per mile is very conservative, and it's based upon our weather and other conditions. The manufacturer will tell you the efficiency is much greater. So you should see significantly greater savings than what we're projecting here. So we're a little bit conservative on that as well.
So in terms of the next steps, Wendell would recommend proceeding with the temporary charging phase in order to accommodate the 3 TVIP buses. And then start on detailed design for phase 1. This is just a proposed schedule that we put together for construction for phase 1. And it's really to highlight some extensive lead times for items that would be required.
And again, just from this standpoint, depending upon how funding sources become available to the district, we may look to bring Wendell and team on to the next capital improvement project to serve as an architect in this area to help us kind of work through the next 3 phases, quite frankly. That's kind of where we're at as we speak right now. The first thing that, as Danielle mentioned, that we have to tackle is trying to find some funding sources to get those temporary charging things in place. Proterra has approached, Mike and I were at a conference together. Proterra has approached us to kind of use, much like Wendell has, much like NYSERDA has and National Grid have, for us to be a model school district. So there might be some opportunities there to work with Proterra directly to kind of recoup some costs as far as that goes. But now that we have this report in hand, we need to get moving. We do, in order to be ready for those 3 buses to come in.
I'll just add on a little bit to what Don was saying. I think one of the beauties about this approach that we've had is that these sources of funding are open to us. And so the quicker we move on this strategic plan, the better off we will be to obtain some of those fundings and offset our costs on there. And then being a model school and being somewhere that presents this plan, I'll talk a little bit about that later, but presents our plan and our approach to this has also been very beneficial to the district as well. So just want to first say thank you to the board, of course, for their support in moving forward with developing this plan, but it is going to pay off. It is paying off dividends already.
Just before we take an opportunity to do questions, I just thank John and his team, Danielle and Adam. Just through this relationship alone, we fostered a relationship directly with National Grid to become part of the TVIP program and the Make Ready program. We fostered a direct relationship with NYSERDA to become part of the funding sources with them as well. And then through presentations that collectively the group has done together, we've made a connection to the Highland Fleet company that has allowed us to be part of the next 2 rounds of EPA funding. So I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Scott Kennedy and his team in transportation. There is a tremendous, you guys each have a copy. I left it for you in the boardroom, but you each have a copy of the report. As Danielle had mentioned, this is 6 to 8 months of work here. Scott and his team have been very helpful to Danielle and John and their team to kind of get to a point where they're able to make recommendations to us as a district and to look at ways to kind of do this both in a phased manner, but also in an economical manner as well. So I just kudos to Scott and his team as far as that goes. And to this group here, this group has been fantastic in working with us directly and getting us information and getting us a report that we can use. Because honestly, this all started when we were talking about the capital, the current one that we're in, when we wanted to put conduit in the ground to get ready, and National Grid said, that's all well and good. We won't talk to you until you have one of these. So we have one of these now. So National Grid is talking to us, which is a good move. So I thank you guys, and I don't know if the board has any questions.
Quick question.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
If I may, thank you, but I would echo on Scott and his team.
Yeah.
This was really a collaborative approach and it took a lot of their time.
Yeah.
So to develop a plan that was specific to Sweet Home, it was a collaborative approach. So very, very glad to have the team that you guys have.
I think I know the answer, but anyways, to bring them back on for the detailed design phase, would that be another professional services contract?
Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about that, but probably yes.
Okay, thanks.
I had a couple of questions. It took me 11 months to get my van. Everybody knows that, right? Supply chain. It's kind of ambitious what your dates are looking. What does our supply chain look like and where are we getting a lot of these batteries and these parts?
Believe it or not, the supply chain for the buses is not bad. Buses are coming off assembly lines fairly quickly. Batteries have not been an issue to date. What's really the issue is this guy right here, and that is switchgear, electrical equipment. It is still very long. Lead time on electrical gear is what's really driving that schedule.
My other question was, Scott and I went to a presentation at our last convention, and one of the things they stressed was you have to be clear that the groups are working together. They stressed IT to us because if a problem happens, it could fall under that realm. You've got to be sure and demarcate what belongs to what. Our IT can handle all of this.
At this point in time, yeah, it's a brand new facility over there. We have Wi-Fi and everything. We're networked, we're ready to go. I imagine that there'll be some added pieces that we'll need to do in terms of charging mechanism and charging software. But at this point in time, we're in good shape.
The biggest addition will be a charge management software, which will control the chargers and optimize the charging so you minimize peak charging and still get the buses charged. That's the biggest component.
You're phasing in costs, the 11.1 million, that's for the redo to provide the charging stations, correct? I mean, that's for all phases. Do we have a true life cycle cost of what this will cost the district? And 11 million for the actual charging, we saw the savings and maintenance costs over 10 years, but that doesn't talk about the cost of buses. Do we know the actual cost? Or I know that it depends on the availability of grants. I understand all that, but do we even have an estimate on what it's going to cost us?
So the buses that we are getting through, and I don't know an exact number that we're getting through Matthews buses through the TVIP program, have a sticker price of about $335,000. So now we're getting $200,000 back. So we're underneath that, the regular diesel bus threshold. Going forward, I can't tell you if we've mapped that out quite yet, Josh.
And we wouldn't retire any buses early then. We would just take them out of their life cycle.
Regularly,
buses.
if there's an advantage to us in terms of grant money, we would consider it, yes.
Okay.
Also, in talks in Saratoga and Albany, it looks like, there's no real push to extend the mandate out, but there's also been no clarity as far as the aid that goes with it so far. So we're operating under the assumption right now that the aid structure, the way it is going to stay the same. So we would get transportation aid on any transportation costs associated with it.
There's some conversation going on. Buses obviously would be fall under the transportation aid realm. It's these pieces, the charging mechanisms, the charging management software. Is it a building aid or is it transportation aid? And nobody seems to want to answer that question quite yet. So we'll see what happens.
The other thing I would add is on the cost of buses. A battery electric bus actually is much simpler than a diesel bus. There's less components. The real difference is the battery, and costs are coming down. So I would expect, my own personal opinion, I would expect that battery electric buses costs should start to come down.
For the 3 buses that are, hopefully definitely going to be here by fall next year, is that something that needs to go on a ballot?
So it's part of the budgetary process that number is always put into the budget. When we put out the budget for vote, we always include a dollar amount for bus purchases, and we try and delineate 4 large buses, 2 small buses. So it would be, we have these buses in line, ready to purchase, with caveat that our budget must pass.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to thank the team from Wendell very much for all their work and effort here. From day one, we wanted to take a strategic approach to the mandate, and we really feel like that partnership has done that, and that was our goal, and we've reached our goal with that. So can't thank you enough for your partnership. We'll be presenting together at the New York State School Boards Association. They accepted our proposal because of our approach to switching around the fleet, and so we're excited to get the word out there about how we our approach to this and trying to maximize every dollar for our taxpayers. So thank you again, everybody, and looking forward to presenting at the end of October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you guys.
all right, be well. Be well.
Come and clap. Nice job, guys.
Okay. Our second presentation tonight for the board is on our financial statement audit presentation from Lumsden and McCormick, and Seth Hennard is here tonight to present to the board regarding our audit. And he's got gifts.
If you want them, you don't have to. I think you have them all electronically or not, so that's just the paper copy if you want them. So what's included in there is all the draft reports related to the June 30th, 2023 financial statement audit. So we did have a discussion with the audit committee, was it a week ago or so? We went into more detail on that report. So we'll try to keep this pretty short and just kind of touch on the highlights. We do have included with all those drafts is the presentation on the top slides. So on the first slide is the deliverables of all the different reports. Those bullet points you see there, the top 3 bullet points are various auditors' reports that are included in the primary financial statements. So what we've issued is an unmodified opinion, and that basically means is that your financial statements are materially correct in accordance with the government accounting standards. The unmodified opinion is the one you're looking for. That's the highest level of an auditor assurance. So that's good news. The second and third bullet points are various additional reports we have to do because you're a government and because you do have federal grants. Both of those reports kind of disclose any findings on compliance or internal controls with those rules. So you had no findings on either of those. So it's also a good result. For the third bullet point, that's the compliance on the federal grants. So you do have about $9.1 million of federal grant funds you spent during the year. That was a decline of about $1 million from the prior year. So what happened there is, an increase of $1 million from the prior year. You spent about $1.5 million more in the education stabilization funds, which is that COVID money. That's the multi-year grants, and it's kind of a matter of when you spend it. You also had decreases in about a $400,000 FEMA grant that was received and spent last year, and about $200,000 of the student, I'll call subsidy accounts, which are the breakfast and lunch meal federal grant amounts. So those kind of offset some of that increase. You are considered a low-risk auditee because you had no findings in the past. As I mentioned, we did audit those, the federal grants. Those are required because of federal rules we must test. So the two we tested were the Title I grants and the Stabilization Fund grants of the 3.6 and $1 million for a total of almost 4.7 million, about 51% of the total grant funds. And that's the part where I said there's no findings for internal controls or compliance. It was really on those specific grants. The data collection form is electronic submission that we'll file with management. They could send to the federal government in the next couple of weeks. We also have a report on your student activity accounts. That's your student funds where they raise and spend their club funds. So there's a separate audit on that. That's just some of the information of how much they raised and spent during the year. And the final two bullet points on that page are various other letters we're required to provide. So slide 2 talks about the communication of those charged with governance. So on that slide is just kind of a summary of the required communication. And it talks about the auditor's responsibility, independence. Basically, if anything happened that you should be made aware of any major issues, difficulties, delays, problems like that, they'd be in that report. We have none of those things to disclose. So it's a standard, very boring report, and just how you really want it to look. On slide 3 is the manager letter. So that's the letter we provide based on any kind of non-finding, but any kind of internal control recommendation, efficiency recommendations, just more minor compliance type items. So we had 2 comments, both from the prior year. One of them was on the excess fund balance in your food service fund. That's because of the excess, basically COVID funds that were being provided to all school districts. The New York State wants about 3 months of operating expenses in your fund there. So you are over that limit. So you're trying to spend that down. District does have plans to spend it on equipment and kind of hopefully reduce some of that, but it is above the recommendations as of right now. The second comment was extra classroom funds. That's a very common point we have every year. Most districts have it. In the past, it's been on there. This year, we tested, the student clubs we tested had really no issues. So we had really no recommendations for that this year. It was actually a really good result that most of the time you have comments in there because there's turnover in students and turnover in advisors. And this year was really good shape. So that's good. The next slide, slide 4, one more, is the summary of the fund balances. This is your kind of the financial results part of this we'll get into. The whole top half of that slide is all of your categories of reserves and fund balances in your general fund. So your general fund had about $19,318,000 left at June 30th. That was a decline of almost $2.7 million. And then the list of those items there is how you've kind of categorized that 19 million to various reserves by New York State law. You can see most of those have not changed much. The top 3, employee benefits, workers' comp, and retirement, really all just increased because of interest earned on bank accounts. You did fund the unemployment reserve. You used about $610,000 from your debt service reserve to pay off required debt payments. And you also funded the tax cert and the capital reserve. You used about $500,000 from the capital project reserve that was transferred to the capital projects fund, but then you also funded the capital projects reserve $750,000, which is the net of the 268 there. The assigned categories are the amounts that are kind of saved for next year's budget, and that's to lower the tax rates for next year. And by difference, whatever's left is the unassigned fund balance. That's that $3,876,000 amount. That is the amount that is required by New York State real property tax law to be at 4% or less of the subsequent year's budget. And that is at 4%. You are in compliance with that requirement. The final 2 funds on this page, your capital projects fund might look really large at $32 million deficit. That's normal. That's just as you spend your capital project, that goes negative. And then once you issue a bond, that money comes in and then it gets goes positive. So your funding of that $32 million was funded by a $39 million bond anticipation note. That's just 1-year funding that gets recycled every year. And so your decline of that $15 million in the far right is just the $17 million of spending you did this year, and then the general fund kind of paid off some of that debt. The final big fund you have is the food service fund. Like I mentioned, you have more than 3 months required by New York State. So that $2.8 million is kind of the number you want to go down for compliance reasons, for benefits of the district. Having a good fund balance is not a bad thing, though. So you did increase that about $833,000. Last year, it increased by 1.2 million. So it is getting lower. You are trying to use more of that funds, but you are also having a positive year. So also it's a good sign. Slide 5 is just the general fund of the revenue of the general fund. So it's broken down to those 4 categories. You can see most of it is property taxes. Your general fund is really funded by about 60% of property taxes. That increased 3.8%. You got state aid about $1 million. That's just based on state budget primarily. Your sales tax is fairly consistent. You get about 5%. Then the other categories, all the other amounts. The big difference there, which doesn't look like a big number, but it's percentage wise, you did earn about $560,000 of bank interest, and last year was $12,000. So as those bank accounts earn more interest, that'll just drive that increase there. The next slide is the general fund expenditures. About the increase from 82 million to $90 million from 22 to 23 is about $7.5 million. Really, most of your expenditures of the district are salaries and benefits. That's about 74% of the total spending. Salaries increased 7.3%. That was raises, a lot of the transportation department. We have health insurance, retirement systems, which are TRS and ERS contributions to the state plans, and just payroll taxes are broken out. Employee benefits are a big category there. Health insurance increase is really just that $1 million is more of a higher funding than 105H plan. So that's just kind of a timing item on that. Overall, the debt service and transportation are fairly consistent. Debt service and BOCES is consistent. Transportation, about $1 million in extra contracts. So that's a big part of the difference. So the main increases were payroll benefits and then just some contractual type items. And then finally, the last slide is kind of we take all the funds, put them together, change how the accounting is done, which is kind of confusing. So I won't spend much time on this. Just 2 of the highlights. Your total district cash is in that current asset number, that $36 million. That's cash and short-term receivables. And then look at all the liabilities. You have $73 million. Primarily, that is bonds and your bond participation notes, which will be converted to a bond once that capital project finishes. You'll have roughly $55-60 million of debt outstanding. So the difference of all that is $83 million of net position. That's like the equity, the fund balance. So a pretty healthy number. You lost about $1 million on a full accrual basis. So nothing too substantial there. But overall, just like I said earlier, to start off with all the different reports, unmodified opinion, no findings, no issues like that, nothing big, and positive financial results. So just overall a good year for the audit. We came out, got the audit done quickly and efficiently, and thanks to Don and management and everybody who's here that helped out with that. So it's really all I had prepared. If you have any questions, we can go through more details, but that's the main highlights of all those 80 pages or so that you have in front of you.
I've just got a statement. Brian and I serve on the audit team for the board, along with Bill and Mary Ellen, 2 community members to talk about this. And we met last week and got this presentation from Seth and had a handful of questions answered. And I think everything went really well. And I'm very happy with it. I'd like to commend Don and Nicole and your team on putting this all together. I think it's all doing very well.
Yep, I agree. It's nice to see the extracurricular is in good shape.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but it's a very common comment for many districts. So to have no comments is a very rare thing to have.
I just have one question. I noticed on the revenue side, it looks like the from 21 to 22 went up about 5%, and then 22 to 23 about 4%. So that seems like a little bit. Inflation's been a little higher. So in that sense,
just in terms of total revenue.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly. It looks like our on the revenue side, it's not quite matching the level of inflation levels.
Yeah, so a big part of that is inflation. Well, most of it's your property taxes. So you're capped on the property taxes, and you're at 3.8%, and then your state aid is your second biggest piece, and that's really dependent on what you're spending, which is various building aids, which just discussed earlier, building aids, transportation aids, other things like that. And then you also have general aid from the state. And that's really just based on their budget. And so you kind of get what you get. So that's lower than inflation. It's kind of a budgetary item.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think it's, kind of noteworthy in the sense that, we're obviously held to we have to operate in an inflationary environment
Correct.
where we're a little constrained in
Right. Yeah. So
the
your
revenue.
expense up 7.5 million and your revenue is only up about 4. So yeah, it's a good $3 million difference from one year to the next, which is not insignificant.
No,
Thank you, Seth. Thanks
Thanks,
to you and the team for all the work. Appreciate it.
And thank you.
You well. See you later.
Next up for the board, we have Mr. Murphy is in the audience tonight, and he wanted to talk to the board about the German exchange program and give an update to the board regarding this program.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for having me tonight. Anytime we have a group coming over, I like to keep in touch with the board to tell you how the program is going. And to thank you, I gotta say, for the transportation, the buses are incredible help to making this program successful. There's a few board members that are new, and we have some veterans too. Scott, I can't remember, did you house a student when they were here? No, Mary Ann did.
Yeah.
She did this a few years ago. So just to tell you about the program, this started back in 1985 with School Partners Abroad, part of the, it was the Council on International Educational Exchanges. So that's the type that it is. It's an academic exchange. Okay, we actually, when they come here and we go there, we live with families and we shadow the students in the schools. The first school we had actually was with Darmstadt. That was 4 years. We went 1 year to Berlin. And for 30 years now, we've been with the same school in Hungen. And just get your picture of Germany in your mind, southern central, right? Frankfurt, about 60 kilometers north of Frankfurt is where this school is. It's in a little town. They have a wonderful program set up with us. First, I'd like to tell you about what we do here. As I said, the kids stay with families and they shadow the host student. You're here for 2 weeks. For the first week, they follow the host student around. For the second week, they get to choose their own schedules. We have a lot of, every few days, we have excursion set up, field trips. We have 2 Buffalo tours. We do a tour of Niagara Falls in the day, go to Toronto and then tour the falls at night. And we have local things also. One of the things we do during October was pumpkin carving. This time around though, they're going to be here for trick or treating, which Germans don't have. So look forward to seeing how they like that one. We have a little contest set up for the best costume. See what happens. Our school, it's a well, in German, it's a Gesamtschule. That means comprehensive school. What that is it has the 3 types of secondary schools. All right, we have them all in one. In German, you have what's called a Hauptschule that goes to the end of 9th grade. And those kids that graduate from that usually go into an apprenticeship, blue collar type of things. The next one then is a Realschule, goes to the end of 10th grade, and they go more into like a white collar internship type of setup. And then they have the Gymnasium, that goes to the end of 13th grade. And those are the ones that have the real hard tests that get into the Universität, the university. That's how you have to, that's what you have to pass that test to be able to attend a German university. These kids are the ones that are in that, they're following that course. So their English is really good. Also that, they've been taking English since about 1st grade, and if you could ever think about that, it would be nice, but I know that's kind of a tall order. But what else, Lord? Basically, that's how it runs. And just to say the other side, when we go, we usually go when they have school, and it's usually right after our school lets out. And they would go then on their calendar until mid-July. Or since they stagger the summer vacation in the German states, like 2 of them staggered, so they're not all on vacation in August. They might start up, they'll end like at the end of June like us, and then start up in the middle of August. So that's the other time period that we would go. And we go for 2 weeks also. And they also have a wonderful program set up for us. We attend their school as they did, but they take us on trips to, for example, Frankfurt, which is the closest thing they would have to like a Manhattan. We go to on the Rhine, and a boat ride on the Rhine, see all the castles. We go to all the nice little towns and you see the half timbered type houses, and also local things. So that's basically what happens on the other end. If I could show some of the pictures of some of the things we do, and that I'm thankful for, that we have the transportation with us. All right, so these are just, these are all mixed together. That's one of the groups. Trying to believe that was from a while ago. Oh, kind of small, that's all right. As we go along, there we go. All right. Yeah, that I believe was from, this is a mixture of different groups. This I believe was from 2015 or 2017. And there's a group from 2015. That's at the last one was at the farewell party. This one would be at the welcome party that we have in cafeteria. That one's just like pizza and things. The farewell party is a potluck dinner. And I'd like to add that everyone is welcome to these nighttime events. Also, if the kids want to go, if any Sweet Home students want to go on these excursions, they're more than welcome. Since we have the bus and everything, they just need to bring along the right identification and so on. It's open to the district. All right, so if there's others, there we go. Okay, this was a very nice tour given by John Radens, former board member, and he gives tours at the boats down there, the USS Sullivans and USS Croker and so on. That's one of the things we do right around the canal side area. And there's our pumpkin carving. Of course, we also have contests for that, and it's interesting to see what they would come up with. This is one of the things. Instead of this, we're actually going to be going trick or treating. And there's another one of it. There's the other group, and that was from, see, around 2015. It was 2015. That was one of the groups at the end. All right, there we are in Maid of the Mist. One of the things we do. It's one of the things I used to do, a summer job. I was a Niagara Falls tour guide, so no problem there. It's really nice to get them all together. Now, this is actually over at our, that's over in Hungen at the back of the Rathaus, the city hall. And that's a old Brunnen that's like about 500 years old. That was the group that went in 2018. And you can see some of our graduates there. One of them is Alex Gold, who's now a substitute in the high school. Okay, there is me, and we're at our famous cemetery, telling them about the famous Buffalonian deceased people. Just in general, this one I was talking about the Blocher crypt, or whatever you want to call it, the heartbreak story, but also the reason why we do it is it's a nice place actually to explain all about, believe it or not, Buffalo history. Okay, of the indigenous people, they're buried there, Millard Fillmore, right, all the way down to famous people like Rick James. So that's one of the things that we do at Forest Lawn. Okay, that's up in the lighthouse tower at the marina, looking out into the lake. One of the things we take them down to there and show them Buffalo, old and new. There's more pumpkin carving. Another one. Okay, this is in Toronto. It was supposed to be a shot. We go to the Ontario Science Museum. Anyone that's been there know it's a hands-on museum. It's very nice. What we usually do is we hit the Science Museum, we go downtown, Eaton Center, around there, right? Do a little like tour of Toronto. And then in the evening, we hit the falls at night so they can see them lit up. And there is Clifton Hill. Falls at night. All right, this is at the, it's actually at the, if you're familiar with it, the Whirlpool. That's between, where the falls is, about 3.5 miles up from the falls. And there it is there. And the rapids. And this is on Goat Island.
That's all of them. I think that's all of them.
Is that it? Okay.
Yep.
All right. There was a, well, if you can, there was, I sent out another, it was like just a short clip. It was in another email.
There it is.
Yeah. Okay. There it is. All right, so this is a little compilation of photos and live shot. Okay, Goat Island Falls. It's at the farewell party.
Consolation prize, and they got your Halloween pencil.
On video.
This is the last time they were here for trick or treating.
Okay, let's see if we can hear. All right, now it is Halloween. I want to hear everybody scream on 3. 1.
We cut that out. Yeah.
That's the good part.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So, yes, I want to thank you once again, board and the district for, giving us the buses. And it really leads to, I think, a successful exchange. So, are there any questions? Because some people haven't been around.
I just want to say, my kids, of
Yes.
course, we were all in it.
Yes,
It's back, great memories. They still talk with Mara.
that's what I was
who is in
hoping. Yeah,
Yes, who is in
Mhm.
Australia right now.
nice.
Do you still have the 2 women that come over?
Yes, yeah,
Wow.
Karen Bischoff
Yes.
and Susanna Schaub. She got married to Freddie. That was the guy. Yeah, but they will be coming here. And that's the thing. And I feel bad because I'm usually here with the
With them,
Germans,
with
but we
them.
can't, they're not going to be
Coordinate.
here when there's a board meeting.
Could you send us all the itinerary? So if there's something
Sure.
we can.
You know
join,
what?
That would be great.
Right here, I can send, I have copies here. If anyone would like one.
Yes, we're on.
Here, let me just here. Oh, you know what? There you go. So yes, please, more than welcome to. I'd like the more people that are involved in the district, all right, to be able to see this. All right. I know I'm one-sided about this, but I think that this is one of the best ways to, to make our kids worldly, put it that way.
Mr. Murphy, you mentioned last week we put in the memo about needing families, host
Yes.
families. How's that going?
We're good,
And,
very good.
and-
Was getting a little, yeah,
Get the- we
in
gotta get the word
despair
out.
yeah. If you were to ask me last week, I had 2 out of 10 people. I now have 9.
Awesome.
And I have, for the
Awesome.
10th person, there's 3 people that are like, well, I have to check, we gotta see. But I'm confident that we should find
Awesome.
last person. But yeah, I'd also like to, thank the district for that. Number one, I went to classrooms to make sure everyone was aware, but it's important that the message was sent out. Also, Christine sent out a nice things in like email, social media. And the biggest thing I had to say that helped was the robocall. We made a robocall. I think that was the most effective thing. So I noticed people started going. It was funny. It was a slow go. I think it's darn, it does does anyone want to do this anymore? Well, I was finding out from the kids, it's like, yeah, I'm asking my mom or dad, but one or the other says, well, I don't know. And what. I understand, as a parent and everything, you're opening up your house and you got to be willing to do it. But, I think this is what happens is time goes on. I don't want to say wear them down. That's not it. It's more that, my son, my daughter's been asking, so finally I come into contact with the parents and can explain things to them. And it's, I think we have it down as how much time. It's like we got a lot of activity time for them. So, there is time at home also. And, we break it up just right. So I think that's what adds to it.
Awesome. It's good news.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
for all
you.
your
Thank you
help.
for your passion. And I have just a couple more updates for the board. Our parent forum on school safety is tomorrow night, 7 o'clock in the auditorium. We're excited. We've partnered with Amherst Police, Town of Tonawanda. We'll also have Secret Service at the United States Secret Service at the event tomorrow. They file reports on school violence every year. And so it's important that we are represented there. We'll have booths out in the lobby of service agencies, including our Family Support Center. Will be on hand tomorrow night for our families. So tomorrow night, October 11th at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium, talk about school safety and answer any questions parents may have.
And that's only for parents, correct?
We're calling it a student-free event because there will be topics of a sensitive nature, especially related to social media and student exploitation on social media. So there will be definite topics of a sensitive nature and definitely more appropriate for parents to be there, not students. So like I said, we'll have safety updates, concerns, impacts of social media with Amherst Police, Town of Tonawanda Police, U.S. Secret Service, and Horizon Health Services. We'll talk about the mental health impacts of social media on students. There will be a roundtable. We'll have some questions for our panelists and get into a discussion on those topics. There will be a Q&A period for parents and more. We're also promoting a series of parent university events to talk about curriculum and instruction, to explore new curriculum programs, particularly in math and science, gain an understanding of next generation standards and how our new curriculum programs align with those standards. The first one is this Thursday night from 6 to 7:30 in Virgil's in this room right here. And that's on Imagine Learning Math in elementary grades K, 2, and 4. And then on Thursday, October 19th, a week from this Thursday, from 6 to 7:30, we'll have it at the middle school. Desmos Math will be featured for grades 6 through 8 and Open Science Ed and for our science curriculum, grades 6 through 8 as well that night. Parents are asked to register. They can go to our website and register for Parent University nights. Dr. Wilson, I don't know if you had any other comments on the program.
We were wrapping up the planning today, so looking forward to it. It's going to be some fun times and digging into math and science.
How's engagement looking?
We have about 15 families registered in each one.
We're also asking, we sent a note out to parents the past 2 weeks, but we're asking for their input as we start approaching our next major capital improvement project. We're asking for the community's input through a thought exchange program, similar to what we did for the strategic plan. The link has been sent out to community stakeholders and asking them what they would like to see out of 21st century facilities. They can comment, they can answer, they can rate other people's comments on that as well. So really looking for all stakeholder groups to comment on what they feel like 21st century facilities should include and what they should look like. And then we do have like I said, last time, we do have a building use committee at the end of October. So we'll be discussing that input and where we are. That thought exchange is open till the end of November, but we'll starting to get preliminary data from our partners at BOCES, and we'll be bringing that to the building use committee to start shaping our ideas around the capital project and start shaping our recommendations to the board around the capital project. And that's the superintendent's report for tonight. Any
Okay.
questions?
Moving on to our next topic would be the NISBA proposed bylaw amendments. All 56 of them, I believe. I noticed there are a few that are marked with discussion. Do we want to, if we're in unanimous, skip that proposal? Is that okay with everybody? We won't discuss the ones that are unanimous
Oh, yeah.
on the ratings?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving through, proposal 1 was a unanimous agreed. Proposal 2 is 6 agreed and 1 decided. Do we want a discussion on that? Or are we agreed?
I gotta pull up. I can't remember if I was.
All right, I'm sorry if I'm moving a little too fast.
Sorry.
You're all right.
The book, I believe, is in the September.
Yeah, I was able
Notes.
to pull it up. This is number 2.
Number 2. There were 6 agreed and 1 undecided.
I don't think it was me.
So Peter, you were the
That
undecided.
was undecided. I am good with the agreement. I don't have the list of who was what, and I don't remember what I did a month ago on these. Proposal 3 is a sunsetting proposal. There were 5 agreed, 1 disagreed, 1 undecided, and a discussion. So I will just read the quick proposal. Resolve that New York State School Board Association support legislative proposals that would allow districts to adopt an earlier start to the instructional school year, with those dates being eligible for state aid, and also allow for extending the school year beyond the last Regents exams. I do not know who picked the discussion on that, but if they do remember who they are. If they would
I
like
think
to-
that one was me, because I think I just didn't understand the scope of this proposal. Is it just saying that if you're operating as a school district within those dates, you're eligible for state funding? Or is it saying that,
State funding goes Tuesday after Memorial Day to the last Regents exam.
Right.
So it would be if they extended state funding, say the last week of August, they would extend that with the state funding.
okay, so, yeah.
If, do you mind if I comment on that? So in Albany last week, I was at a meeting where the commissioner was presenting and this question came up. There's a lot of talk out of Albany about new holidays potentially coming on the calendar. We know that the Lunar New Year came on the calendar, and there will be a discussion in Albany about extending the instructional time beyond the current scope of the calendar. They don't know when that discussion is happening, but there is preliminary talks that they are understanding of the concerns school districts have of meeting the requirements put forth by state ed of the days requirements, and with the additional holidays that the state is proposing. So I think that that is related to this.
Okay, so this is preventative, like forestalling more mandates coming down. Okay, thank you.
I guess the alternative is to lower the required dates. I mean, I just,
Yeah.
It's like,
They're making it.
my kids would be happy with that.
Yeah.
Couple less days of
Yes.
school.
And as I understand it, there's going to be more to come.
That's what the talk is. Yes, there'll be more to come.
I believe June 21st is. I know we have Juneteenth on the 19th. There's no Regents exams on either. I think it's the 20th or 21st because of another.
Yes, yes,
So.
yes.
This one, the Asian one the lunar doesn't affect us this year because it's on a Sunday or a Saturday. or
Correct.
something, yeah.
It's next year. We'll have to work it in the calendar. Yep.
Are we all in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. 4, 5, 6, and 7 were all unanimously agreed upon. So we will skip over them. Number 8. is another sunsetting. There was one disagreement and what with the discussion. Number 8 reads that the New York State School Board Association supports legislation that allows the date of the annual reorganization meeting to be on or before the Monday following the 20th of July. So that would move it back, correct? So
Okay, I think I was the discussion. I thought it was saying that before July 20th was not currently legal. And I was like, that's really concerning to
Yeah.
me. It's extending it
it's
further
extending
out.
it that we could, so we wouldn't have to do it on like that July 5th.
Okay, we could do it the next week, right? Then I'm fine.
9 was an agreement, 10. Sorry. Was a discussion as well, that the New York State School Board Association supports legislation that would substantially increase the earning limitations for retired police and other law enforcement officers who are serving as school resource and safety officers. I'm assuming that is asking retired police to come back to be SROs. Any questions on that?
I just had a
I don't think
question,
it
if
would
it
be.
would pertain to our security people that presently use.
Probably not. I think they would have to be an actual board appointed SRO.
Okay, so not the security, for sure.
Yes.
11 was 5 agreed and 2 undecided. That the New York State School Board Association opposes any legislative or regulatory effort to grant tenure status to non-instructional school employees. Any discussion or how we want to?
What kind of employees is this relating to?
All non-instructional.
Well, non-instructional employees.
TAs. 6 was, or sorry, 12 is 6 agreed and 1 disagree. 12 was that the New York State School Board Association shall seek legislation to streamline the tenured teaching hearing process set forth in Education Law 3020A in a way that preserves due process while addressing spiraling costs and extraordinary length of time to conduct hearings. Is there any, well, go with the majority, everybody, okay? 7 is a unanimous, or sorry, 13 was unanimous. 14 was 1 undecided. This is a long one, so I'm just gonna read the first part. That NYSBA shall take a leadership role in raising awareness and understanding of the importance of all school district leaders and understanding and taking action to address disproportionality in the education workforce and in student outcomes as it relates to diverse backgrounds. In carrying out the mission, they shall develop training, encourage school boards to invite discussions with student, parents, staff, and board develop district action plans, take an active role in collaborating with other groups. Don't know who the undecided one was. It might be me. I'm not sure. Okay. All right, 15 was unanimous, but a discussion. Does anyone remember who, Sherry, who was the discussion?
Bailey.
Haley?
Let me read real quick, sorry. I must have been feeling really chatty when I did this. I don't remember why I wanted.
Okay, so this one states that NYSBA support legislation and regulatory changes at the state level that would authorize school district and BOCES to directly offer childcare as automatically licensed providers with processes that are acceptable for employment in public schools. If the school district or BOCES demonstrates a community need for such care and directly charges families for such care would be eligible for the same family subsidies as a traditional child care facility.
I don't remember,
Okay.
sorry.
So 16 17, 18, and 19 were all unanimous.
I just want to ask about 17. I
Yes.
thought all our schools have Narcan anyway. Is it just saying that it has to be a law, but I thought all of us had access to it.
You mean all Sweet Home schools or all schools in New York?
No, all Sweet Home schools.
They're saying in the proposal here, in the proposed resolution, that it make it a requirement. Yeah.
So it's not now.
No.
Oh, that's interesting. Why, I wonder why not? But we do in all our
Yep.
schools.
Okay, 20 was 4 agreed, 1 disagreed, 1 undecided, and 2 discussions. This is that the New York State School Board Association support legislation to eliminate Regents exam testing at a high school level in favor of state final exams that comply with ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act, regulation in the 10th and 11th grade for ELA 1 exam, math 1 exam, and science 1 exam.
I was one for discussion, just around, by doing this, would it water down? That's what I'm concerned about, watering down our standards.
Yeah, it would be very difficult to comment on that now. I know that the regents are going to publish their report soon on graduation standards. So without seeing that yet, it's hard to comment.
Yeah, I think I was also one of the discussions. I just don't feel like I have enough information to back either way. So if that's something that we could maybe have.
Abstain or vote undecided?
It's a yes or no. Well, actually, I can abstain. It's typically it's yes or no, but I can abstain. I'm undecided. They wouldn't have that as an option for the voting. A lot of these positions, this one in particular, will be things that'll be in their book of priorities.
Okay.
Won't go anywhere. There's too many other players involved to make this one go anywhere, I think.
Yeah.
Is that something we could maybe have a presentation on at some point? I don't know if it's.
Yeah, I'd like to see what the report says when that comes out, and then certainly dissect that and see where we're at with it, and then we could.
If you feel
certainly
like it's
present it.
relevant, like that's
Yep.
really is something we should be talking about, I'd like more information.
I think a no vote on something like this, if we think it's underdeveloped or immature, it's a substantiated no vote, just for that reason. It doesn't have to be you're principally opposed to it. We can just not support it because it's not developed or fleshed out enough, I would think.
We didn't get any amendments on this, did we? Did we see
No, I
anything
didn't
on
see any,
this
no.
For more clarification?
No.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the rationale is only like, well, we're only one of 7, what does it say? Only one of 7 states that requires students to pass an exam. It's like, that doesn't seem like a rationale. It's like nobody else is doing it. There's no really, logic, like there is probably logic behind it, but it's not explained in the rationale section. It just says we're one of 7 states,
Based on what Josh said, when I get there, it's part of it is I can't stand up and put my hand up and say I want to speak to it. And they can just say that, and, something about it. And then sometimes they will, either one of the next speakers will step up, somebody from that school district, and try and feed us more. Sometimes the committee will give us more information on what they heard and what they discussed in Albany 3 months ago.
So are we abstaining or are we voting no?
I think I would agree with Josh in that a vote no on a not enough information.
Yeah.
Kind of.
That's what I just wrote down.
Okay. 21 was a 6 agree with 1 discussion. That NISBA will advocate for an update to the rates established for compensating providers for preschool services, which provided to students and special needs exceptionalities.
That was me. I just wanted to know how many preschool special need kids we have. And you don't even have to give me those numbers right off the top of your head because I'm just throwing it at you, but I would like to know how many. Kids.
Yep, I will. I'll find that out, but that those services are, provided by the county and for pre-K.
I didn't even
so.
have a number in my head.
Yeah.
on how many kids
We
we're
can get
dealing
that for you.
with.
No problem.
Thank you.
22 again was 6 agreed, 1 discussion. That NISBA supports changes to the laws and regulations regarding the provisions of preschool educational services to special needs students, including section 4410, in order to remove specific barriers to the efficient and effective delivery of these services.
That was
We
me
were in
again,
the same,
just because of,
Yeah.
I read the special eds every month. And what regulations specifically are we talking about? I guess I didn't fully understand.
I think they're looking to combine them. I read the rationale on this. I think
Didn't really
because it's two separate systems right now, I think they're looking to
combine.
kind of meld it into one.
23 and 24 were unanimous. 25 was 5 agree, 2 undecided. This is that the New York State School Board Association support legislation at the state level that would allow school districts whose pre-kindergarten programs are over subscribed to show enrollment preference to students who would be eligible for free and reduced price lunch and or are English language learners.
I might have been the discussion. I'm always loath to support prescriptive, when the state tells the districts how to do something. This one, it isn't that. It just says that it will allow districts, but sometimes I think the provision of allowance sometimes gets translated to you shall. So I'm always just reluctant to have the state tell us how we should manage pre-K enrollment. Not that they are, but that's why I didn't say no.
I think I was with you on that one, Josh.
Yeah, I didn't like it, the wording of it. I just felt like they were kind of not backdooring, but I didn't like it.
I understand what you're saying. That actually comes into play in some of the other resolutions further along too.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, is there something in law that prevents that?
Good question.
So I don't know. I'm good with whatever
If it
the
comes
will
up-
of the board.
If it comes up in discussion, I think that's a really good question to ask, if there's anything that prevents this,
Mhm.
other than opening yourself up to civil rights lawsuits, perhaps.
I think the rationale they were saying it's right now a lottery, right? That's the alternative. Second paragraph, the way I understood it.
Maybe.
It says there's required to hold the lottery. I guess they're trying to provide more of a process.
That
And a
sounds like-
random piece to it. Is-
Wrote that down. I'll check in. I'll see if I can find something out before next Monday.
Okay. 26 was unanimous. 27 was 6 agree and 1 disagree. It's that New York State School Board Associations advocate for the state research in New York students who are already being administered the grades 3 through 8 test via computer perform better on computer-based tests versus paper-based tests, and for full funding to such computer-based testing.
This is 26.
I'm sorry, I read 26. So that was unanimous on that one. 27, that the New York State School Board Association support legislation that amends the current civil service system to bring it up to date with changes to the duties potential employees will be assigned. I'm not well versed on civil service systems, so.
Sucks.
It's basically the same system that's.
Yeah, I know, it's updating. civil
Our
service.
legislative team meeting, Dr. Graham is the representative to the legislative team, and he was talking about, I guess it's been a discussion among the superintendents. It's tough. It's the civil service titles that we have. They're typically in the service units. And it's tough to get the people in because if the lists aren't even kept up to date, the exams aren't anywhere near current. And having worked for the state for years, that I can
Not
vouch
being
for.
offered for another year and a half.
Exactly. And then if you bring somebody on board, then you got to worry about them not finishing top 3 in the exam and
Right.
all the other regs behind it. They're looking to make it a little bit more realistic system without
Okay.
throwing out the whole process.
Severely shrinks the pool, its current system.
Yes. 28 was 6 agree in a discussion that the New York State School Board Association support legislation to exempt debt service expenditures related to litigation under this Child Victim Acts from the tax cap.
That was me for discussion because they talked about keeping it with local control. My question was, what would local control look like? I can't even. I don't know what they're talking. To maintain local control for this, what does?
I just think over the tax cap, because anytime you incur debt, that can impact your tax cap. And so what this is asking is that any payouts to CVA cases have zero impact on tax.
Okay,
tax
got it.
cap.
I'm fine with
So you don't
that.
want to have
I'm fine with
large
that.
amount of debt that could
Got it.
actually have you a negative tax cap.
That's already happened, at least one of our neighboring school districts, but a multi-million-dollar
Well,
settlement
yeah,
out,
yeah.
yeah, and that's, and they had to, they had to take bonds out for it to take it.
29 was 5 agree, 1 disagree, and 1 discussion. That is that the New York State School Board Association advocate for passage of legislation that would seek to decouple student standardized test scores as a metric in determining a teacher's APPR rating.
That was me again. I do not understand what they mean by decouple.
That I took it as that
I don't know.
it would take out your student standardized scores when you're looking at the rating scores of the teachers. It would be more based on observations.
Okay,
than
got
anything. So,
My understanding too.
Good.
yep, okay. 30 was 6 agree and 1 discussion. That New York State School Board Association supports legislation that would fully fund universal access to free meal programs for every K-12 student within the state. I'm assuming that would go back to what they did during our COVID school years.
Yeah.
So,
We had one discussion.
yeah,
because
1 discussion.
I just, my comment was, I think it should go further and include the summer. You know, I'm
Okay.
a big proponent of
Was
that.
that
I
a
don't
resolution as well?
It is, there's
get
something
in
in there.
here and I was really, if it was going to be anywhere, I thought it would have been somewhere included in this, but at least include for the summer, and it didn't. And that's why I was like,
Okay.
you didn't go far enough. It
Doesn't-
could be fed during the summer.
I'll make a note of that, but they, I know when NISBA takes these on as their position statements, it's not a matter of following the exact resolve, but understanding of what
Yeah.
the,
Spirit
what the boards are. So I would say that they would probably advocate for year round. And then work, and if you get it school year first, they would just keep working on it in the summer.
31 was 6 agree, 1 disagree, that New York State School Board Association supports legislation that would allow but not require New York school districts to offer early voting in annual school budget vote and Board of Education elections, consistent with early voting allowed in non-school district elections in New York. But gives, I think I was the discussion on that, or the disagree on that. And I think because it says, I think with early voting allowed, I think there was a lack of guidelines to it. We're kind of, when will we do our early voting? If we allowed it, we're only 2 or 3 weeks from our board and our board member meet the
That would work well,
candidates.
presumably, if they pass the state budget on time.
I'm agreeing with you there. Mine was lack of guidelines for it. Would we have to change move up our meet the candidate night? And it depends on the budget as well. It's just a tight guideline from April 1st if they're late to May, that Tuesday in May where we vote. So
And most of those dates are tied into law already anyway.
I agree with the early voting, but I think they were just, for me, I think I was the disagree on that. 32 agree, 5 undecided, 1 and discussion 1. And this is that the New York State School Board Association supports legislation that would revise New York State's school receivership law to remove punitive consequences and provide a more supportive, equitable system for assisting schools and school districts in need of improvement.
I just wanted more clarification on what the receivership law, like, what does that mean?
Basically means the state would come in and take it over. Take over your school for
lack of performance
Oh, okay.
achievement. But they were not going to, this was to not punish the school districts for being in receivership.
Right, no, especially
There would
financially.
be any financial.
Yeah.
Some of what they
burden on
did
them.
almost put you into a permanent receivership because of the way. they
Because you
do it.
can't get your way out of it financially because they're punishing you
Right.
for being in receivership. Yeah. Okay. All right, 33 was all 7 disagree. 34 was 2 agree, 4 disagree, and 1 discussion.
Just to clarify.
Yes,
When we're agreeing or disagreeing with the not recommended,
not recommending,
it's
disagree is not good.
agreeing or disagreeing with the proposal, right?
Yes.
With the resolution.
Right, so 7 of us disagreed with this resolution, so
Okay.
we will vote no.
No.
So this logic gymnastics was killing me as well. So we're voting on the support of the non-support. Well,
Yeah.
we're
Yes.
voting to agree with the non-support, but what about when we're talking about something that's sunsetting? Like, so isn't that now being removed from the legislative priority list if it's sunsetting? So we're agreeing with the like, there's like 3 double negatives in there.
Yes, and I think
Three
that's,
negatives.
if you look at the scores here, I think a lot of us had that.
It's just
We were
impossible. So
confused.
what are we agreeing with? Are we agreeing with the proposal to sunset the resolution? Are we agreeing with the NISBA's or the resolutions committee recommendation? I wasn't sure what we're voting on.
I was understanding it as, do we want them to vote no on this
Yes.
resolution?
But are we voting no on the provision for sunsetting? Like when they're saying sunsetting, they're talking about the
Some that's
propo-
been in their proposals for the priorities for 5
Right.
years.
So when we vote disagree, you're gonna get up and vote, no, we want this removed.
To go away.
We want this to go away. Okay,
Okay.
so if we vote agree, then you would vote yes, saying that we actually support this resolution.
Correct.
Okay,
I think that was
So-
one of the ones that said agree because I don't know why. I don't understand why kindergarten is not mandatory.
34 is that NISBA support proposals that would make kindergarten attendance mandatory. How we could. Although at kindergarten, they do not have to legally register for, it, correct? So I think, is that what they're making it mandatory, mean you'd have to legally register for?
Yeah.
it? Okay.
It's like 1 through 12.
Okay, 35 was 1 agree with and 6 disagree. That New York State School Board Association support legislation at the state and or federal level for a waiver for small rural school districts from the law that mandates that all schools vehicles be zero emission vehicles. So this is more rural districts don't want to follow the zero emissions. I'm assuming based on the proposal tonight that it would be outrageous for them going on long bus trips every day, that they might not be able to either afford those bigger buses or.
Don't look again, don't worry. But I think I was.
What number?
Yeah, to me, I think I was the no, but I didn't want to speak for somebody else. To me, that's an unfunded mandate that, we have, a 56 bus fleet, but it's $11 million cost, right? Just to put the
Yeah.
charging stations in. And just like you said, we don't know where it's being aided from. We don't know what's happening. So I just don't like unfunded mandates for smaller districts. I don't like unfunded mandates at all, but
I think the
the
reason.
impact is outsized.
The reason that I didn't agree with the proposal is because of resolution 19 was an earlier one that was related, that had something to do with pushing the mandate back. Or adjusting the mandate or removing it. I don't remember. Otherwise, I'm also comfortable advocating for rural districts to be able to opt out.
Okay. You got that, Scott?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
36 was 5 disagree and 2 undecided. That New York State School Board Association support the repeal of the law that mandates all school vehicles be zero emission vehicles. I believe we're all on the same idea. It was the same as the last one. 37 was a unanimous. 38 was 6 disagree and 1 undecided. And 38 is, sorry, that the New York State School Board Association oppose any legislation or budget initiatives that would allow New York states to overrule local zoning ordinances.
This one also came to the resolutions to the business meeting last year. I think it was the exact same wording even for that matter.
Okay,
And it was deemed then that it's a local issue they need to address directly with their
okay.
their house rep there, yeah. Their elected officials.
39 was a split, 3 agree, 4 disagree. That New York State School Board Association support laws or requirement for each board member to attain 6 hours of professional development each year after they complete the required mandated training.
If you get reelected after your first term, you don't have to do training again?
Correct.
Correct.
I would support that. I would support training if you get reelected for a
In
second term.
parentheses, a good board member should be getting
Yeah.
training. It's
Yeah.
a duh. I mean, you should be doing this anyway if you're.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're committed
Right.
to, and most professions require ongoing
PD. yeah.
Exactly.
continuing education. So I am supportive of 6 hours of professional development.
I
That
agree.
was where my
I
thought
agree.
is too. We already have E ECSB providing us some of that training at different
Yeah.
times. And even our own, when we had our board retreat,
Yes.
that type of
I
stuff.
think
I
we
mean, all
most-
of these
all
things
us
would
hit
fall into
6
that.
year, 6 hours
Yeah.
over our term
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
Okay. 40 was unanimous. 41 was 6 disagree with 1 discussion. That New York State School Board Association included as a legislative priority issue, changes to the educational law allowing districts to vacate the position of a teacher or teaching assistants on leave for 1 year or more. No, I don't have the discussion, but I was against this. I did have a question on this, though. I might have been the discussion.
Sure.
I believe currently, if someone's on a family leave or takes a year leave, the district for 1 year, they have to hold their position. If it's for the second year, the district just has to have a position available to them. It doesn't have to be the position that they left. Is that correct?
Isn't necessarily a year. It depends on FMLA regulations for
Okay,
3 months or 90, 60 work days. But then there's additional time depending on different or various contracts. But I think under the, I think they've got it listed in here, civil service law, the section 73 and 71, like if you've been out
mhm.
on a workers' comp or disability for a period of a full year. That applies to our service employees. So I think they're looking, this is a teaching position.
Yes.
If you've been out. And I would need more information because it's not clear to me if it's beyond your FMLA period of time. Because it's confusing that they're referencing a teacher or a teaching assistant, but they're citing civil service law. So, but it sounds like they're trying to make it align to 30/28 process. So I wasn't really sure that I fully understood the rationale.
Yeah,
In the past couple of years, I know we've had some discussion and like a couple of times I served at the resolutions committee and helped work on this. And I know there was a handful of school districts around the state that were putting forth resolutions that sounded like it was trying to solve their specific problem, not everybody's
I
problem.
mean, is this a resolution to give districts the freedom to fire someone who's been out for over a year?
Sounds like to me. It
Okay,
looks like
then
they're
I
trying
would,
to,
yeah,
And or the ability to fill the position because it's
right, okay,
note it as a vacant position, which would allow you.
okay. We're all
Still a
in
no.
disagreement with, yeah, still no. 42 was unanimous, 43 was 2 agreed with it and 5 were against it. That the New York State School Board Association work with New York State Educational Conference Board and its supportive members to call on the New York State Legislature to improve Tier 6 in the current requirement systems for the school employees. And that we seek support and legislation to establish tier equality for 5 and 6 to align more with tiers 1 through 4. I believe we should.
I'm sorry, he was coughing.
Sorry.
Okay.
I believe we should support this. I
I
know
do.
that is the teachers union's strong to fix tier 5 and 6 to be equal to tier 4. Okay. Oh, I think we should vote yes for that.
I do too.
Are we all?
Are we all in agreement with that? Okay.
I mean, are we? Because five people said no. So,
Okay,
I mean, I support it because I don't,
and I support it.
I don't think it makes
So
sense
let's-
for it to
we'll
be
take a-
decreasing as the living wage gets more expensive. But if,
Support.
Scott,
I didn't support it and I
Okay.
go back and I retired from civil service on tier 3. And when they made modifications to tier 3, I told my legislators they were crazy then. I said, when they did the changes that you made to the systems were designed to make them last longer. And even though it benefited me, I told them they shouldn't be doing it. I fought against it. So, and it's, to me, it's still the same principle. If we're trying to extend the life of these systems, that's why they created the different tiers. So that's my position, but
okay,
I'm also here to vote for the board, so.
Josh,
These are tough, right? I mean, they're so out of context because first of all, I don't frankly fully I understand it to an extent, right? But I certainly don't understand what the budget impacts to a district like Sweet Home would be. And it's difficult to vote in good conscience on something where I really just don't understand what it would mean, what the cost would be. So, I mean, not that the vote yes or no is approving, it's just approving a resolution to look at it.
right.
Which that I can get behind, but I still, it's just so many of these I had a lot of trouble voting on because they're kind of like Scott said, either addressing a single district's or region's problem, or they're just not in the context of whatever the larger law is. So I mean, I can support it, but I frankly don't fully understand it.
I
Brian,
mean, yeah, the gist of this, as my understanding is basically they're saying these earlier tiers had some meaningful more benefit financially than.
the retirement, it's
So it seems.
Yeah, every tier has
I'm
changed the
comfortable
benefit, either
supporting
the
it.
amount you
Right.
put into
the
it
amount you
or
put
the
in, how
time you
long
had
you
to work
put in.
every time.
Yes, and then the amount you get
Yeah.
when you do.
The amount you get
retire.
back too.
So I would support, I would.
I got that as a yes vote then.
Okay, so that would be a yes. 44 is 1 agree, 5 disagree, and 1 undecided. That the New York State School Board Association support legislation that would require the state to develop and fully fund climate change curriculum for all public elementary and secondary schools in New York State.
that was me. I agree. I think we should support it.
Okay. I think I fall under an unfunded mandate.
It says it includes funding right in there,
Oh,
fully fund climate
fully
change.
fund, that's true.
curriculum. There was funding included. Not that it would be given by New York State, but I think it's important to have that as a part of curriculum.
Yeah, the argument against this is we've long pushed to not have the state legislate what our curriculum is going to be. And that's what state ed is for, and that's what the local school boards are for. And this would put them in that position of doing that. That's the general argument against it. Even if that's something that should go back to state ed if that's it, or to the local district.
I mean, in response, you could say something like the DEI initiative has been a push that's been statewide and state mandated and is lauded. So there is precedent, I think, to be making the case for something similar having to do with climate change. But
Saying it's broader social and public interest.
yeah.
It's not curriculum per se, it's.
And I
but
also
this
think
is
it's
specifically
hard,
saying
it's hard to
curriculum.
understand science. Like if you're not teaching about climate change, are you actually learning about science? Like I think that it should be taken into account when we're doing a lot of our curriculum. But I can understand the logic of that. I just think there is precedent to be making the argument for it.
45 is 6 disagree with 1 undecided. That the New York State School Board Association support a revision of the state legislation to allow New York State Ed Department, charter schools, or non-public school employees to serve on New York State Boards of Education. Well, aren't I in this position? I already do it.
You just found that.
Well, I wouldn't be in New York State Education Department,
No,
so
Yeah, you don't fit any of those categories.
Right. Is that asking for like, if you have a charter school in your district to have a representative from the charter school on your Board of Ed? Or, because as long as they're a resident of the district, it wouldn't matter if they worked at a charter school or not. They could still run for Board of Ed, right?
I don't think so, because I think it could be a conflict of interest when voting on the budget,
Oh,
because some of
okay.
our money would go to support charter schools.
Couldn't they just abstain? I mean, is that a criteria for running?
I believe that that's what that means. So if they're not allowed to be on right now, then yeah, but there would be a conflict there.
Yeah, they're using the appearance of impropriety as the standard.
Right.
It wouldn't just be financial, it could be curriculum
Yep.
based as well. Yep. Programming.
Okay, are we all in agreement with the disagree on that then? Okay. 46, 47, 48, 49 are all unanimous, although 48 was a discussion. So I will read that one. That the New York State School Board Association will oppose any mandates from the State Ed Department regarding matters not pertaining to academic standard subjects, math, science, reading, writing, social studies, that have not been approved by an up-down vote of the New York State Legislature. I may have been an undecided because I probably didn't understand that. I believe I would oppose that, so.
And this also came up last year.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to get into the argument. It was a long argument.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
All right, 50 was 1 agree and 6 disagree. That New York State School Board Association will oppose any legislation or NICED regulation mandating comprehensive K-12 gender and sexuality education.
This fit into the same categories as the last one, as far as the discussions.
So I just want to get this clear. I agree that parents' role, especially with the younger grades, it should not be mandated. The parents should have some say in this and it should not be mandated. So I don't know if that would be a yes or a no.
That we would oppose any legislation that would mandate doing it. So that would
I do
be,
not want it mandated.
okay, I think, I'm guessing that I don't know if everybody was on the same wavelength here. How would we like, I guess we'll put this out.
I would say
No,
I'm in
6 agree.
agreement with Mary Ann on this. I think at the younger ages,
It should not be mandated.
I think though that this is specifically being as opaque as possible,
Mhm.
because you're never going to get a K-12 mandate for comprehensive sexuality
You're right.
education from New York State. You're not going to get that in any state. And it's setting it up so that there's reason to be opposing any kind of gender or sex education in schools at any level. And that's not what it's saying here, but that is what it's.
That's not how I took it.
Yeah.
I took it, go ahead.
What Kaylee's saying now was the gist of the argument last year.
Okay.
It's the people, what they wanted to not have it discussed at all, period.
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah,
That was
it's
the- that was the
setting up a
gist of it.
precedent
It was the
to
same school district.
continue
My
that
concern was
same.
with the younger grades.
Yeah.
So because they kept in the K through 12, if they hadn't included them.
But they do that on purpose because that includes 12 as well.
Because
And
they did include it, that's why
yeah,
I voted. However that came across as the no. Can we make a resolution to get this more clear within this?
That's the point of the resolution.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's
Crazy.
every school district that has the ability to submit can submit any way they want.
I want to know how some of these
Yeah,
school
I
districts
agree.
submit like 20 of them. I want to know what their boards are, they're submitting all these.
I Yeah.
Well, the way I read this is though it's saying mandating comprehensive K through 12. So let's say if there was mandated 5 through 12, then this wouldn't apply because this is only saying K through
It
12.
only saying K through 12.
Then,
The whole thing.
then I'm in alignment with,
Okay. Yeah.
you know, what everybody else. I mean, if they're specifically saying K through 12, but you know, if there's an ability to break it out, then I think
I think they tip their hands in their rationale. It says should be kept out of our schools,
Yeah.
comma, especially our elementary schools, not exclusively our elementary schools. It should be kept out of our schools, especially elementary.
All right, 51 was 1 agree, 4 disagree, 1 undecided, 1 discussion. This resolves that New York State School Board Association will oppose any reduction to the requirements and or standards related to history and civics in the New York State curriculum. In addition, they would advocate to keep Regents exams in US history, government, and global history as requirement of end of the year coursework. So you're opposing and advocating in the same resolution, right?
It's gonna be a moot point
Yeah.
anyway.
I agree. 52 was a unanimous. 53 was 6 disagree and 1 undecided. That's the New York State School Board Association work together with affected school districts and others to rescind or modify the Board of Regents policy regarding school mascots and imagery. I'm assuming this has to do with the Native American.
exactly.
districts. Which is mandated now, so most districts are
Yeah,
already.
most of them
doing
have
that,
already
yeah.
made the changes.
54 was 1 agree, 3 disagree, 2 undecided, 1 discussion. The New York State School Board Association does now proclaim its full support and endorsement of the requirement that school security guards receive and be required to obtain the specialized school-specific security training.
And I said, oh, I think I said no to this, was, right now, isn't it the company's responsibility to do the training of our security people? I did not want to take that on as another mandate.
Right.
So that's fine.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right, 55 was 7 disagree, but there was a discussion. That New York State School Board Association support legislation at the state level that would set limits on the start times for schools to be no earlier than 8 AM.
I think I might have been the discussion on this only because we've talked about in the past year. So we talked about just wanting to keep it on the horizon that we want to revisit high school start times. And I do want to revisit high school start time when that's feasible. So
And then the last one was 6 disagreement and 1 undecided. Resolved that the New York State School Board Association opposed the reformulation of smart snacks in schools, which serve to confuse students and parents as to the true nutritional values of such snacks, cookies, chips, etc. Smart snacks should return to the USDA's 2014 original intent of more healthy options such as fresh fruit and vegetables. Currently, many smart snacks offered are virtually indistinguishable versions widely sold outside of schools. I don't know who the undecided one was on that, so.
it might have been me. I don't remember. I do think there's value in updating the smart snacks. It's a regular topic on in our wellness meeting. I don't necessarily know that I'm the right person to say that we should totally scrap it. So.
So you know how to vote?
Are we all
I'm
set,
all
Scott?
set. Yes, sir, I am ready.
Okay, moving on. All right. Items of interest. things upcoming, Mr. Genestri talked about the parent safety meeting tomorrow night. We have a couple PTSA meetings this week at the high school. Glendale is doing a trunk or treat event. We have DEI meetings. Heritage is doing a trunk or treat. Willow Ridge is doing a fun run on the 20th. Dollars for Scholars, craft show and basket raffle will be on October 21st at the high school. More trunk or treats and PTO meetings. Okay, next agenda item is open session on agenda topics only. Are there any takers for this round of open sessions? Okay, moving on. New business. Can I get a motion to consent agenda A through E?
We don't-
No, need
No,
that?
no, we don't need
we're just-
that.
We're not voting.
Discussion.
All right, so discussion, special ed, placements, class placements in preschool. I'm working on them as well, Mary.
No, I've gotten through most of the 96 pages. Sherry,
Yeah,
thank you for getting that whole encompassing, because I do like to read that every month, but I will have it finished by our next meeting.
Okay, any further discussion on the district audit report that we heard from earlier? Monthly financial reports? Transportation bid? I believe there's two, correct, Mr. Feldman?
Correct.
And then the last one there is girls wrestling. Is that the coach?
Yes.
Coach for the girls wrestling.
Are there other girls wrestling teams right now in section 6 for them to?
It's evolving, and there's going to be some tournaments, girls only tournaments that they're looking to do. I talked to the coach today. He has interest in 20 girls signing up for wrestling, and it is rapidly expanding. So we're excited about this possibility, and there will be girls. I think if not this year, next year, there'll be a girls only leagues.
Okay,
for
just, are they going with the boys right now for tournaments? or-
So there are some that they will, and then there are some girl only tournaments that they're looking at doing as well.
Okay, and I'm assuming, I never wrestled, so I didn't pay much attention. 20 is enough to make a team, I'm assuming, or
Yes,
more?
13, I think is the.
That covers the weight classes?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool, thank you.
Okay, informational items.
Also field trips, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that
okay, I
it's,
might have missed.
I just wanted to say it was nice to see so many field trip requests again. It's been a while.
Yes. Okay, informational items then. Mr. Tryloff, do you have anything to share with the board? Your first meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Just before this meeting, I attended the district safety committee meeting. Talked about the parent safety forum happening tomorrow night, the annual district safety training, the adoption of a Raptor emergency management system, status of other safety projects going out throughout the district. And then an update just from student government kind of quickly. We're getting started for the school year. We met as a whole group for the first time on September 29th. Focusing on getting our 8 committees up and running. I know myself and our Vice President, Erica Chan, along with the rest of our members, are looking forward to working with all of our building and district administrators, to accomplish as many of our tasks this year as possible and make it a memorable year for our students.
Ms. Jason?
One of my favorite events of the year, the ENL graduation over at the middle school is the staff does such a phenomenal job, and the kids are so proud as they walk across the stage. And as Mr. Genestri said, any graduation in September is a good thing and reason to celebrate. So really enjoyed that one. The safety meeting, Joanne always does a great job with that. Officer G was not there, but then we welcomed her, reviewed what's going to happen tomorrow with our safety night. District safety training, they stress the importance of, as probably our staff knows, keeping the doors closed and the handle in the locked position. Do I have that correct? Continue with our lockdown drills, and they're still being scheduled and in progress. Mass notification pretty much throughout the district now. Raptor now has new modules which tracks drills, alerts to cell phones and computers, and the reunification plan to relocate, to try and tie into Power School, as I understand it, should start going the next couple of months. Mr. Feldman talked about some capital projects. We're down to just the punch list, everything being finished up at our schools. And let's see. I still don't understand what the difference is between hold in place and shelter in place, because I guess that's coming where there's going to be a differentiation.
Yeah, so holding places where essentially you just don't move because there's perhaps a medical emergency going on in the place. You just stay put where you are. In a hold in place or a shelter in place there might be inclement weather, and we shelter students in the auditorium or the gymnasium.
Got it.
And in the past, they were kind of lumped
Put together.
if you will.
Yes.
So the state education department, they separated them to make the nice acronym shell, which is likely to change again when they move out to the work.
Got it. A new grant for threat assessment. They'll start team training. An emergency remote instruction plan template for situations like COVID. It's very generic, could be more specific for Sweet Home, and will eventually come to us for board approval. And then I attended the Maple Mere PTA meeting. One of the highlights of that was we talked about one of our scouts, he's an Eagle Scout working on the gazebo over at Maple Mere. That's his project. So I went over there on Saturday to see it in action. I'll send you all some pictures. Looking great, but congratulations to Derek Woodward. He's putting a lot of effort into that. Had some lively discussion about buses. They, as I understand, they're tracking the buses to see coming. I don't know if you touched on that when I was gone.
We're tracking each route every single day, time in, time out. We have cleaned it up. It's been running on time the past, I would say, 10 days or so. So really want to thank Scott and his team over there for, hours and hours and hours of work. So we're getting there.
Mr. Ryan really encouraged parents and staff to go through and talk about the thought exchange. I don't know how many of you have already gotten on it to do it, but I've already started it, and it's pretty all encompassing. You feed off each other's responses. So it's a lot of information. And what else? They're celebrating there. Lackawanna came over. The student leadership is really getting noticed, the Lighthouse work that they're doing over there. Lackawanna came over last week to take a look. So that's about it.
Mr. Johnson.
Okay, we had our first legislative committee meeting of the year for Erie County Association of School Boards. We had a handful of new members, and as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Graham is now our superintendent representative, and he's from Grand Island. Sorry, I'm rolling back and forth through things here. The NL graduation, again, I love that it was great. Lots of smiling faces of the kids. They're awesome. We had an alumni committee meeting last week. And I know at our previous board meeting, we had suggested the possibility of trying to get together to collect information from our alumni about businesses that they might run in the area so we could help promote those businesses. I brought that up to the committee, and the committee thought that was a good idea. They don't currently have one, so I was going to take a little outreach, and what they're thinking is putting it in their social media. And if I remember right, and Nicole, I know Nicole had to leave, we were talking about some sort of form they could fill out that would just put it in for them without having to go running through everybody else. Our audit committee meeting, which we already discussed. I had the pleasure of going out to East Aurora for their Champions of Change Award. I'm serving as a representative for NISBA. I got to get the picture because I don't remember exactly the words. They have a sustainable agriculture class, lab, and farm. And this is something they've started working on out back. And currently they've built up the area for some stuff that they're still going to finish on. They're putting over greenhouses, but they're starting to do stuff. And they've got another building that they're using for supplies and some winter storage, but they've also got chickens, which they're growing. They had 4 different things full of chickens. There's probably about 200 chickens altogether. One of the 4 was going to be laying eggs. They expected to be laying eggs in January. The other 3 were going to be dinner. They're actually going to be part of the process. They're going to the processing facility, and they're going to be involved with that process. the important part of it is that not just the fact that they're out here doing the farm stuff, but these kids as part of their classroom are actually going to figure out the costs and and marketing of this. So, that when we get in here, we know, okay, it costs us X dollars to buy a chick. We take so many months to raise that thing and the feed for it and the work we put into it and repairing the equipment or the cages and so on and so forth. And they're going to be doing that for all of the things that they're working on. They're already looking to the future. They've got their campus is over 100 acres. To the possibility of putting a tree farm out in one area and a couple other things that one of the local businesses offered to bring them in beehives so that they could do honey, and they were going to train them in that whole process. So right from the beginning, when they got it going, it's growing quickly for them. And I talked to their superintendent, Brian Rusk, said, I think I got the right one.
Yep, Brian, yep.
And we were talking about it, and I said, just the New York State School Boards Convention. I said, 2 or 3 years from now, when you guys have really got this rolling, that'd be ideal for something for you guys to present to the future. And he agreed with me, as it was a great thing. It was pretty cool to see the whole process, though. All right, I lost my calendar. District Safety Committee meeting today. Yeah. That's it.
Not enough, Scott.
Never do
Sorry.
that. I also attended the legislative committee meeting. Just want to remind everyone to take a look at the ECASB priorities list. It's not quite as extensive as the NISPA one. And you can email that to me. I also attended our board retreat, which I thought was just really wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And then today I met with Mr. Perry at Heritage Heights and we took a walk around the building. There's some really, really cool stuff happening with STEM integration. There's Mrs. Lotek, the librarian, has done some really cool stuff with the space in the library and making a maker's space there and really emphasizing engineering as something that kids can explore even at this young age. When I went in, they were learning about book binding. It was very cool. There was 2 different names. It was something, it wasn't a maker space. It was maybe project-based learning. There was another space specifically for project-based learning for some of the older kids. It just seemed like they're really leaning hard into embedding STEM into kind of the whole student experience. And it seemed like they're getting a lot of use out of it and the kids really seem to enjoy it. So props to them over at Heritage Heights.
Mr. Feldman?
Real quick, I was at the chef board meeting about a week ago. The mini grant application cycle just closed, so there's some interest. So we'll see how that shakes out. But they're in pretty good shape. The big bogey is they're trying to figure out what to do for their major fundraiser this year. Typically the faculty basketball game, so they're trying to look at other alternatives if need be. I also participated, this is kind of Sweet Home adjacent in the Willow Ridge. It's an Amherst Park, but I always thought it was part of Willow Ridge property. Is they built a new playground over there on the Amherst side, participated in that bill. And that's a really, really nice facility. Like I said, it kind of blends seamlessly with Willow Ridge's property. And last, I was at the board retreat as well. I've done countless strategic offsites and visionary planning meetings, and that was definitely one of the best I've ever been to. I really thought we made some significant progress towards establishing kind of measurable and actionable goals, both on the board goals and on the strategic plan as well. It was well done.
Yep. I also attended the board retreat and an agreement. I thought it was well done. The audit committee, which we talked about, and that went well. And then PTO meeting at Willow Ridge last week, Thursday. The big focus is the fun run that they have coming up. They did this last year, and they had the membership or the leaders, the leadership of the PTO organized it. This year they actually outsourced a lot of the work to there's a company that will handle a lot of the social media and the outreach and a lot of the pieces, kind of, so it's in a sense a product. And their fundraising goal is 10,000, and they're hitting all the milestones thus far to hit that. So I mention that because, from my perspective, as an outsider, it seems like this has gone relatively well for them now 2 years in a row. And, I know that fundraising is always can be a challenge, or some of the other PTOs and PTAs do this on an ongoing basis throughout the year. And it seems like at Willow Ridge, they're now going to a model where it's, a big focus in the beginning here, and then they can spend the rest of the year just focusing on, the programs and the activities that they'd like to have then, rather than, ongoing fundraising. The other point that they didn't mention that I think is noteworthy is they are, there have been discussions about some funding and what to do with that in terms of, and some of these include providing, maybe it's an addition to the park and things like that. But I think with knowing that there is a capital raise and a construction projects coming down the road, there's a somewhat hesitation to kind of put money into a fixed structure of any sort, like a gazebo or whatnot, and then find out that, it may need to be changed or altered in some way after the money's spent. So I think, as we're going through this and we're talking about thought exchange, it's just important that, that we continue to connect with the PTO and the PTAs to, understand that we should talk to them if they have an interest or they want to make some contributions, that's integrated into the thinking with, construction that may take place down the road.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Leibel. In our PTO president's meeting, I will approach that subject with them because while, we absolutely want them to fundraise and stuff too, we'll definitely communicate what it takes from a state ed perspective to put any kind of permanent structures up around a school, and that process there too. So we'll definitely work with the groups if they have ideas, and see if we can make those come to fruition.
Dr. Genestri, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, in the past, I know there was some question about whether PTAs could fund things like that because of the liability. They couldn't do it through PTA, PTO. They had to be friends of, like we did at Maple, friends of Maplemere because of the liability.
I don't know the answer to that question. What I can tell you is that I did have a conversation with the Willow Ridge PTO, and much to Dr. Genestri's points, there are steps that need to happen. If you put any sort of structure on school district property, it has to go through the proper channels at state ed, and there's got to be an approval process, as silly as it seems for a gazebo, but that would be one that would be susceptible to the parameters set forth by SED and the Office of Facilities Planning. So what I've done is I told the Willow Ridge PTO that I've reached out to our architect team to kind of get a sense of what that would entail, and then I can report back to the group. But we're working on it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, as for myself, the boys volleyball team had their tournament, which was on the same day as the homecoming dance. The baseball team had a meat raffle. Our baseball program had a meat raffle this past Saturday. Went very well. It's to help fund equipment, hats for the teams, and the Myrtle Beach spring training trip. And I also found the board retreat very, very enlightening and helpful. Throwing stuff at me, Mr. Genestri. Okay, that leads us to open session number 2. Do we have any speakers? Okay, please indulge me, Mr. Simondera, for reading my spiel here. As part of board policy 1510, we hold 2 open sessions at each meeting. The second session may be used to address the board on topics appropriate for open session. The board welcomes attendance and participation by district residents, persons having business within the boundaries of the school district, and persons who do business with the Board of Education. Speakers must be at least 16 years of age and will be limited to 3 minutes. Please preface your comments with your name, address, and group affiliation, if appropriate. Non-district residents must include the name of their business and how they do business with the Board of Education. And we also have these cards around for any other further guidelines not covered. So Mr. Simondera, you do have 3 minutes. I will start the clock when you are ready.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Paul Simondera, I am a high school social studies teacher, technology coach throughout the district. And I've been before you many times over many years, offering support through different presentations. And on rare occasions, I've asked for time of the board to talk about various things that would be different senses of urgencies to let the board aware of a variety of things over a number of decades at this point. So thank you once again for your time. I appreciate that. And while I could probably express a whole bunch of frustrations on a lot of things that you're well aware of, certainly the association is ready and willing to talk about those things. But I disagree with the bus transportation reports. I'm not sure what they actually are indicating, but on behalf of our elementary staff throughout the district, I don't think that the buses are necessarily timely with their pickups and getting the kids across. So I'm hoping that at the October meeting, Mr. Genestri, that we're able to, at the Building Use Committee, have a further report updating whoever the liaisons will be on the board for us to be able to discuss that and articulate what the problems are, because it's frustrating. We have elementary teachers who will not just leave their kids, though our workday is over. And though we are in a situation that we are in, they're not just going to leave their kids unattended, especially at the younger grades, the age levels that they are. And we get extremely nervous about what is going to be inclement weather coming up. So I see this as a much bigger issue. And I think that we have to have more plans in place. And I'd like to have more discussion, frankly, about that will result in an opportunity for a better pickup system. Something has to give, because right now with the amount of buses, the amount of drivers, and that's no disrespect to our drivers or to the hard work of our transportation department. Right now, I think it's just a simple numbers game. You can't get kids on the first run off the buses in time to pick up the second run, which is our elementary kids who need the most attention, because you got to wait at the door, the curbs, et cetera, to make sure they're being received properly. So I appreciate the time, but I would like us to talk about that certainly at our next building committee use meeting, if I said that correctly. But I know our elementary teachers are in a spot that is putting a strain on our system. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simondera. Any other speakers? Okay, as none are there, we will move on with our next agenda item, which is personnel, teaching, and administrative. Any questions about teaching and administrative A through, so there's a long A. Anything on teaching and administrative A for appointments? Okay, to service A through just A services.
Just a lot of lines, that's all.
Hmm?
Just a lot of lines, that's all.
Yeah, a lot of our October appointments for teachers positions. Okay, seeing no discussion and no need for is there a need now for executive?
Hold on, I have one question. And it's probably more personal than district representative, but I got a lot of questions. I've been involved in the hockey program for a long time. Is Sweet Home going to field the hockey team this year?
So I just got an email from Mr. Schumo tonight regarding our numbers. They're not great at the varsity level. And we are looking at other options besides our relationship with Depew so that would stay intact. There might be several options out there for a possible third team to come across, but I have to meet with him tomorrow. Okay. We're doing everything we can to keep it intact because we know the varsity numbers this year are low. Right now, there's about 13 between, and that includes 2 goalies between Depew and Sweet Home. But the middle school and like JV level, our numbers are increasing down there. So it might be a stopgap measure for a couple of years until the numbers start to increase. But I may have some more information at the next meeting if the board will allow that as far as a possible another partner to keep the program going.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
No need for executive? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
We are adjourned.